Today on Rambling About Cars, there's a new Lamborghini Huracan that you wouldn't mind if you miss an Apex because it's happy to go off-road. It's the Sterrato, and we've got all the information for you. There are a bunch of cars that aren't going to be around next year. We're going to run through a big list of the cars that are discontinued for 2023. Honda's going to be making a new fuel cell vehicle in America, and I think we have a few other things that are slipping my mind, so you'll definitely want to stick around because without further ado, it's podcast time. I am Christopher Smith, and Mr. Chris Bruce is across the way. I was telling you, I say this like every time before we start. It's like, oh, I got to think of what I need to say. And this time, I know I left something out. What did I leave out?
A couple things. Rumor of a Corvette sub-brand has popped up once again.
The Corvette sub-brand, yes. Okay, that's a big one. Shame on me. Yep.
But that's all you missed. So
that's all. You said I missed a couple things.
I was wrong. I was wrong.
No, actually, we're going to be reading some comments and some emails. That's number 2. Bruce, you got my back as always.
Yeah. How was your Thanksgiving? I know you got to visit family this year. So how was the driving part of that?
Oh, the driving part was fine. It's a very easy drive down, very easy drive back. It was just good all around. It was good to see everybody. I haven't had a big family holiday like that in just about a decade. Ridiculous amount of food. Everybody in my family is a pretty darn good cook, as evidenced by my slight weight gain here since I've moved in, despite working a hell of a lot harder to try to take care of a much bigger house. So yeah, everything was really good. How about you, man?
It was good. Cross-state drive from one side of Ohio to the other, all turnpike. Took the new Subaru. Did first real road trip with it. Did quite well.
Well, I did also make a Black Friday purchase that that I sent to you that we'll talk about later because it is pertinent to cars. So you want to stick around for that. But first, how about we jump into probably the biggest debut of the last week, if not, for a few weeks at least, the Lamborghini Huracan Sterrato. I say it's a debut. We saw the exterior of this vehicle. That was, a couple of weeks ago?
Last week? Maybe 2 weeks ago? Last week, 2 weeks ago?
Somewhere around there, where Lamborghini released, I think, 4 or 5 images of the exterior. Showing you that, hey, look, it's a Huracan that sits up a little bit higher. It's got some body cladding on it. It's got some all-terrain tires. Now we have full disclosure on it. And if you were a fan of the Porsche 911 Dakar, I mean, I would love to see Lamborghini Huracan Sterrato, Porsche 911 Dakar doing some head-to-head battle. I think that has to be in Motor One's future at some point. This is Lamborghini's take on basically a rally version of the Huracan. And yes, it does sit up a little bit higher. How much higher do you ask? Just a little bit. It's 1.7 inches taller than the Huracan Evo. It's 1.2 inches wider in the front, 1.3 inches wider in the back. That gives it a little more clearance, a little more suspension travel. Lamborghini puts in an upgraded version of their integrated vehicle dynamics system. In the release, Lamborghini didn't mention anything specific about suspension changes. Whether there are other components under there, still unsure, but they do have their various controls optimized for a little more. I hesitate to use the word off-road because...
Well, they call it... So you were mentioning the drive modes. There's an additional drive mode that's called rally mode. Mm-hmm. So apparently it basically optimizes the all-wheel drive system for better traction on slippery surfaces is what they're saying.
Right. It's designed for loose surfaces. I like how they said loose because, now we're talking about snow or just wet roads. But really, I think they're kind of giving the wink, wink, nudge, nudge to if you're on some gravel road somewhere or if you're on a 2-track. Interesting to me when Porsche, when they were teasing and then debuting the 911 Dakar, they were showing it, not just like on dirt roads or trails. They were showing it crawling over rocks, some fairly hardcore situations. And Lamborghini with the Huracan Sterrato, they just kind of have it shrouded in, they just kind of have it shrouded in dust. And then they have some obvious studio photos that if you go to Motor One Podcast on YouTube, you can see right now. You can also always see it at motor1.com, where I actually wrote the debut article for this one. So I had a little bit of a preview. What else we got here for this Lambo? It's riding on.
Oh, go ahead. I was going to say, I think it's worth mentioning the roof scoop.
Oh, yes.
They're clear. I liked the way you wrote it in your story. It's not for water fording. This is not, a periscope that'll suck air. This is, or a snorkel, I should say. This is the way they're positioning is this. It's going to suck in the clean air. So if you're, off road and you're kicking up dust, it's getting clean air rather than, sucking in all the dirt and grime and sand.
Right. No, I'm glad you pointed that out. And I mean, it's also a little bit of a nod to rally cars, because rally cars generally have roof scoops up on the roof, not necessarily for the engine, but to help get some fresh air for the driver and co-driver. So there's another little wink, wink, nudge, nudge to, hey, we would like to maybe take this car on a rally stage. I would love to see that. I would love to drive it. So Lamborghini, hit me up anytime. I have certifiable experience handbraking a Mazda 6 around several Rapid City, South Dakota corners. So I'm sure I qualify there. But yeah, not for going through deep water.
Right.
Everything that I'm getting just like subconsciously from Lamborghini, this is a cool vehicle that you're not going to mind taking down a dirt road or like a rally stage or something like that. But I don't have the impression that they're thinking in terms of any big hardcore off-road.
No,
I don't think you're going to see a roof tent on here with some overlanding.
Oh, well, wait.
In this Sterrato.
Wait 1 second before we start talking about the other bit about the roof, because maybe you could get a tent up there. I don't know. Anyway, but we'll get there in a second.
Well, it has roof rails, right? So I mean, it has roof rails.
Yes. Up here, you're jumping the gun on me.
I'm jumping it a little bit, yeah.
But here, let me show the folks the roof rail options, because it's not just, it comes standard with kind of black shiny rails, but in their configurator they show several other examples. So shiny black, that's kind of the standard. But you can also get these ones here with actual crossbars. So you could theoretically, load stuff up there. You can have the crossbars in matte black. You can have it in silver. You can have it in, silver crossbars, and then shiny black sides is the third option. So
can we take a moment and appreciate that we're speccing out roof rack crossbars on a Lamborghini Huracan right now?
It's kind of cool. I would love to meet the person that actually put stuff up there. Like I think that's, it's cool that at least Lamborghini is paying lip service to this is a vehicle you could take more than just, on a spirited drive around the city, that you could actually load it up with gear.
Yep. Well, and the teaser that they did just before the debut, I think it was like about a minute, 30-second video at the Nürburgring, and it starts off with the STO, the Huracan STO, and it's doing what it does on the track at the ring. And then here comes the Sterrato, not from one of the paved entrances, but to the track, but just, from the grass, from the corner, and it's taking every single shortcut that it can find, slicing through corners. I mean, that's the vibe that I'm getting here with the Sterrato. It's, you can have fun going down a rally trail. You can have fun going down a back road. You're not going to be launching it through Baja. Although, if there's anybody that wants to try, well, I would love to tell you how much you would just kind of blow on that. If you wrecked it at Baja. We don't have pricing on it yet, but we do know that only 1,499 are built. And I missed, worldwide. And I missed what I think is a pretty cool feature on this car. Of course, it's riding on all-terrain tires. They're Bridgestone dualers, which seems, again, this is a Huracan Sterrato, or this is a Lamborghini Huracan. It's riding on Bridgestone dualer tires, but it's not just that. Bridgestone made these specifically for this car. They're a 235/40 series, 19-inch tire in front, and they're 285s in the back. So, I mean, it's still a 40 series tire. It's not necessarily something that's ready to go rock crawling. You don't have a lot of sidewall there, but I mean, you have more than what's the regular tire on there? Like a 20-inch, like 30 or 35 series,
That
just
sounds right.
rubber band spec, right?
Yes.
So, and of course, I mean the visual. We talked about the roof scoop. It's got those integrated lights at the front. It's got those
are
big,
optional, actually. Did you know that?
Oh, they're optional.
Right.
No, I did not know that. I feel like every picture I saw, they were there.
They are, but if you look at the configurator in the base spec, they are not there.
Well, who's going to get this car and not put those on? Come on.
Sure.
That looks too
for whatever
cool.
reason that's not your thing, you don't have to have them. Here, let me.
Yeah, but I feel like if you're buying this car, it's sort of like I don't know. Do you like to breathe? Then you probably are into oxygen, right?
Here, let me show you real quick.
If you like rally cars, you probably want the lights up front.
You and the other folks can see the difference. So this is their. Oh, did I go to the wrong? Yeah, I got to go back one. Sorry about that.
And of course, I mean they also have aluminum protection underneath for the powertrain components. They have those big beefy the fender. It's slipping in my mind, Bruce.
The fender flares? Is that what you're talking about?
The fender flares.
Fender flares?
Why couldn't I think of flares?
Fasteners? Yeah. So real quick, for anyone watching, they have the Technica model, which has the stripes and everything, and it has the lights on it. But they also show off on their configurator the base offer. That's literally what they call it, the base offer. And that has no lights, but you still get the raised ride height, the fender flare, stuff like that. So it's interesting that you can have like a stripped out Sterrato in a certain way.
I mean, I guess if I'm going to get that, I want the full shot. I want the full shot.
And I have to assume the vast majority of those just shy of 1,500 buyers are going to do that. Mm-hmm. But Lamborghini is at least like, hey, if there's someone out there who doesn't want them, we're not going to make you take them.
Right. But no, it's, hey, if you are a regular listener, and you should be, podcast@motor1.com is the email where you can email us and say, hey, I'm a regular listener. I'll read your email. If you're a regular listener, you know, I really love cars like this that aren't necessarily supposed to be something that you take off the beaten path, but you still go out and you have fun with it. So bravo, Lamborghini. I can't wait to see Sterrato versus Dakar, Porsche versus Lamborghini. Hopefully we can get something going on that with Motor One shortly. What else?
Before we transition, though, I want to mention one other thing, and this is something you and I were talking about before the show, and that is the power output. So this has Lamborghini, the Huracan's familiar 5.2 liter V10.
Oh,
this
yes,
version,
thank you.
Though, makes 602 horsepower, which for anyone out there, to put that in comparison, an Evo, which is kind of the current base version, it has. Sorry, I lost my place here.
630. Yeah, see, 631.
Yep.
So yeah, it's a little down here, but I mean it's on Bridgestone dueler tires. Do you need
that's right?
I mean 600 horsepower on the Bridgestone duelers. Top speed is also down to 162 miles an hour. There are a lot of cars that are now faster than that Lamborghini Huracan, but again, I mean, look at what you're buying.
Right.
This is something.
It's worth noting that Lamborghini says this is the end of the road of non-hybrid assisted, naturally aspirated engines. That this is the swan song to that. That in the future, we know the Aventador successor is going to be hybrid assisted. And I mean, we have to assume that the Huracan successor will be too. So this is the end of the road for a naturally aspirated engine from Lamborghini without any hybrid electrification, anything like that. So,
but Bruce, the Huracan Sterrato doesn't need roads.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, that was terrible. That was terrible. So that's the Lamborghini news. Are we ready to move on to the interesting Corvette stuff that's been happening this week, or at least the Corvette talk?
Yeah, and I think that's very, very, very important to say that this is a rumor. And the reporting on this, full disclosure, did not originally come from Motor1.com. Our colleagues at Car and Driver originally covered this.
Right.
We did reach out to GM, Chevrolet, for comment, and they declined to comment. So
right. And the report from Car and Driver, they're citing sources that are telling them
They are saying
that
unnamed insiders. Yes.
unnamed insiders, that Corvette will be basically a sub brand starting in 2025. And by that, there means there will be other Corvette based or Corvette related vehicles aside from the C8. So talking, I think, sedan, SUV. It's a rumor that's been out there for quite some time.
That's
and
what I
yeah, and that's kind of what we're looking at now, on Motor One podcasts, on YouTube here. We actually did a rendering. We commissioned a rendering of a possible Corvette crossover or an SUV. How long ago was this, Bruce? Like, I mean, I think it's
2
pre-COVID.
years
I think it has to be 2019. Well, it's either 2019 or 2020.
That's right. You're absolutely. It's 2019 or 2020. I'm not exactly sure which, but
I mean, it was after the C8 had already debuted,
right.
because I mean, we had.
But I think
C8
you're right. It was
styling cues.
before COVID lockdowns and stuff like that. So
So
that
I
kind
mean,
of
yeah, I think it might have been like late 2019. So the rumor has been out there for a while, and of course, I mean,
it predates that. Well, let me double check. We had a story from 2019. Sorry, this is 2019. I got to double check. Yes, December 2019. GM Boss isn't completely ruling out Chevy Corvette sub brand. So
it's been out there
December
for a
of
while.
2019. Yeah, this is a rumor that's just been circling for ages, and it definitely makes you wonder in a certain way. Like, are they finally going to pull the trigger on that?
Well, and obviously, I mean, Car and Driver has a pretty long reputation, a pretty storied reputation. But we also have to again emphasize, unconfirmed at this point. When I saw the report, I reached out to Chevrolet right away, hoping that I could at least get something. And I mean, they responded right away. Just sorry, we don't comment on possible future product, to that degree. So that said, I mean, like we've been saying here, the rumors have been floating around for a while. Car and Driver is just naming unnamed insiders, so there's no other meat to it. Other than,
what do you think, though? Let's talk about it from this
it's no mystery. I mean, it's no mystery that SUVs and crossovers are selling.
Exactly.
So, I mean, are we talking about? Well, I mean, if it's going to be some sort of Corvette sub brand, I mean, we're talking about high performance vehicles. We're not talking about
almost certainly. Yes.
I mean, we're not talking about just a rebadged Blazer or something like that. I mean, we're talking about high performance vehicles, presumably something like in the SUV range to be competing with the big AMG Mercs, things of that nature, right?
It makes me what makes me think about this is that Ford has already kind of tested these waters for Chevy in this case. And what I'm referring to is the Mustang Mach-E.
Right.
That has come out. They weathered that kind of storm of, oh, it's not a real Mustang. Oh, we've had that conversation several times. And I think I'm sure in like the hardest of the hardcore communities, that debate is still raging and maybe will never go away. But I would say amongst the mainstream, people have accepted the Mach-E. And I wonder if maybe that helps Chevy decide to do something similar with Corvette, that someone else has already kind of weathered a little bit of this and gotten through it, so they can look to that as an example and say, maybe we can do it too.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting point, and it's an interesting question for me. I know the Mustang community really well. I've had a few of these cars. I've been in Mustang Club, so I really have a good feel for that community. And I mean, by and large, just about every single what I would call a devoted Mustang enthusiast wants nothing to do with the Mach-E. But at the same token, I don't think Ford was marketing the Mach-E towards that group. They were marketing it towards a larger group that wanted something interesting, fun, sporty. So here you have the Mustang name included with it. And I mean, whether you like it or not, it's working, because I think Ford just passed a milestone of 150,000 Mach-E's
Yep, I was
sold.
pulling that up right now.
I think we were just reporting on that. The Mach-E is outselling the regular Mustang. So, I mean, it's a success. It's a success. Whether that affects sales of the new Mustang, that, the coupe that just debuted earlier this year at Detroit Auto Show, I mean, I guess we'll have to wait and see if there's repercussions there. But I feel like Mustang people that want the new Mustang, they're going to go get the new Mustang. They're not going to be upset, or they're not going to refuse to buy the new car that they want just because the Mustang name is on an electric crossover. Mm-hmm. Is that the same with Corvette? I haven't been around the Corvette community enough to know. I've been to a few Corvette specific car shows. And I remember specifically when the C8 debuted, actually the same date that the C8 debuted, there was a major Corvette event happening in South Dakota where I was. And I went up to a big show that was up there and was just talking to a lot of people. And most people were just kind of they had like a wait and see attitude. Mm-hmm. But there were some that were just like, no, absolutely not. The only real Corvette's going to have the engine up front. And then there was the group that was like, the only real Corvette has an engine up front, pop-up headlights, and 4 round taillights at the back. Mm-hmm. Get rid of all this fixed headlight crap. Get rid of these, fixed taillight, just the rectangular taillight crap. Those aren't real Corvettes. It's like a C7 is a real Corvette. Come on, man.
Oh, of course.
A C7 ZR1 is just one of the most amazing performance vehicles of the modern era. So you're always going to find that in groups like that. How they respond to a larger brand where there might be, and I guess too, we're hearing a lot about Corvette based. I think it was last week or so, there was the big GM investor presentation, mm-hmm. Where Mary Barra spoke, Mark Russ spoke. I listened to Mark's speech. There was the speech and the video. They cut out the video when he started talking about future vehicles, but there were several mentions of the next, the next iteration of the C8 Corvette. There was one mention specifically where he's just talking about, the C8, the C8 base platform. This is where the C8 platform is taking us, and it's going to rock the world. And I know some other news outlets picked up on that as saying, okay, he's teasing something based on the C8 Corvette, but not the Corvette. And I didn't interpret it that way, because during this speech, he was talking about Corvette at that particular time. So it was, the context was, I'm talking about Corvette. I don't need to keep saying Corvette. I'll say C8. But with this news coming from Car and Driver, citing some unnamed sources, maybe that was in reference to a C8 based vehicle, not Corvette. So Corvette sub-brand, will these be called Corvette, or will they be based on Corvette, or will it happen at all? We don't know. But what we do know, it was interesting news, and we know Motor One readers, we know from our analytics that you were very interested in what was going on there. So we felt it was pertinent to talk about it here today.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting thought experiment of, what does a Corvette sub-brand look like? Because that basically means adapting whatever the very basic elemental things that make a Corvette and adapting those to some other type of vehicle. And obviously, the first thing we talk about is crossover SUV, because that is the biggest segment in the United States. That is where this is going. But, you couldn't rule out, something else happening as well. But the first thing your mind goes to is crossover SUV, something along those lines, especially when, like you mentioned, your AMG models, your BMW M models, your Range Rover, the list goes on and on, that there is an established market for luxurious, high performance vehicles like that.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, look at what the Urus has done for Lamborghini.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, they're just killing it. Ferrari has had to kind of put the kibosh a little bit on Purosangue orders, because they're saying they have huge demand. It's helping Aston Martin I mean, all of these entries, from supercar manufacturers where people are like, oh, they're really going to do that? Oh yeah, they did it, and it's working out well. And if you're Chevrolet sitting back here thinking, well, we have our C8 Corvette, which now the mid-engine architecture, the Z06 with the power that it has, this is on par with a lot of these high-end supercars from dedicated supercar manufacturers. Maybe we can take a slice of that high-performance SUV pie as well.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff, folks.
Yeah, it's an like I said, it's just a fun thought experiment, even if it doesn't end up happening. And, we do have to take things with a grain of salt, because this rumor has kind of been percolating for so long that you and I both know automakers make internal plans for things all the time that don't necessarily come to final fruition. And so maybe there is some guy at Chevrolet right now planning all this out, but does it end up getting the green light from the right people that lets it actually go into production? We don't know. So right now we just have to kind of think about it.
We'll wait and see, grain of salt, but interesting nonetheless.
Totally. Let's do comments real quick. How about
we do some comments? Okay, let's jump into some comments. Before we jump into comments, if you're a new listener and you're saying, well, how can I list a comment or send in a comment to where you can read it? podcast@motor1.com. You can email them directly to us. You can email stories. We have some great, wonderful ramblers that email us just wonderful stories. We'll read those when we have the chance, which is usually we have the chance. You can always comment on our videos, Motor One Podcast on YouTube. You can comment on the article that goes up every Friday at motor1.com that summarizes every podcast. And you should always be going to motor1.com for your automotive news, because we're the best there is, man. That is just it. So we do have a few comments and some emails. So let's jump into it. Bruce, where do you want to start?
Since it's the tab I have open right now, let's start with YouTube.
Okay.
Let me start with YouTube.
Okay.
These are I'm organizing things as I talk. Okay. So this is not from last week's podcast, but the previous week, where we were talking about the Prius and the LA Auto Show. And Gino Nix responded, I never thought I would say it, but I can see myself in a Prius someday.
I know, right?
Yeah. And same podcast, Ted Adam Green, a frequent listener, commented, the Genesis X is beautiful. Ted, I don't necessarily agree with you on that one, but that's cool. Smith, what do you think? Genesis?
I mean, I like convertibles, and I think it's pretty neat, right?
I don't. I like convertibles. I don't like that convertible. But I agree with his next statement. The Prius looks just as sporty as the Acura Integra, Honda Civic Si, a legit fun car. I'm on board with you there.
Yeah, I'll buy into that. I think the criticism for the Genesis X just comes with the way the front looks. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the big grills, but that's just one happy car. You look at it from the front. I mean, once you see it, you can't unsee it. And it's just like, I am so happy to be a Genesis X convertible. Look how happy I am. And I don't know, maybe it's infectious. I don't know. It's not the prettiest, but it's not bad. I'm all right with it. And for the Prius, let me just say really quick. I mean, I'm not sure I've come across anything negative on the new Prius yet.
No,
I mean, I'm not necessarily searching the bowels of the internet for the Prius haters, but generally speaking, there's some negativity that surrounds.
Right. I mean,
especially in the enthusiast community, and I haven't really encountered that yet. And Gino, if you think you can see yourself in the Prius, you need to go to motor1.com right now and just search up Prius. It might even still be at the top of our river, because we just had some renderings commissioned of what a theoretical, probably never going to happen GR Prius might look like. And it's just a fun little exercise that we did, because everybody's kind of talking about it. It was like a half hour or so after the debut It's like,
It was
oh,
less than that. It was as soon as we saw
GR
pictures of it,
Prius,
basically.
right? Yeah, it's like it looks sporty. They're talking about performance. Ooh, GR Prius. And then the TRD previewed some actual GR Sport appearance parts that you can put on it. So yeah, a lot of talk there.
But, yeah.
Almost certainly not going to happen. I don't think GR lines up with what the Prius is about. But a lot of people are talking. We were certainly talking. We would love to be wrong on this one if it ever would come to fruition. But yeah, go check that out.
Also, this this comment came out 7 days ago, but it was to the podcast where you returned and you were telling your story about the U-Haul, the U-Haul song, I guess I'll call it, for lack of the U-Haul vibration.
Oh, the U-Haul.
Gino had a fantastic comment. So in 2008, we worked on a commercial for Honda where we cut grooves in a stretch of desert road that played the opening of the William Tell Overture. I'm guessing you did not have that experience. Glad to have you back.
I think I remember seeing that.
I think I remember, yeah.
No, did not have that experience. But I tell you what, I've been paying a lot more attention on grooved surfaces now on different vehicles. Mm-hmm. And it's something to do with those groove surfaces, because I can feel it now in other vehicles, not nearly as violent, but right. I can feel it on vehicles where it's completely smooth. The suspension is in good shape on regular pavement. And then I get onto the grooves and I can just get a sense. It's almost like you're just kind of just very, very mildly shaking back and forth, enough to where you don't really notice it until you've been in a big U-Haul like I was in, where it literally broke things. I mean, as I've been unpacking, I've been finding some things that have been broken just from.
Oh, really? So it was that violent?
Oh, it was that violent. I mean, it broke one of my straps on the trailer. At one point, I mean, I don't think the truck went airborne, but it sure felt like it. Because it was like we're going along. It's like just doing this, and okay, it feels like it's starting to let up now. And then suddenly it just got worse. It was like boom. And I mean, it was at that point. It's like, okay, I just got to hit the brakes. I mean, I hit the brakes, slowed way down. It's just like, what the hell was that about? So yeah, not a great experience.
One more comment, and this is from Ben, and he was commenting on our episode about Knight Rider with Knight Rider historians. And he said, I was a huge Knight Rider fan as a kid. At some point, the interest died down. But at some point, I came across the Knight Rider historians by chance on YouTube. Since then, my passion has been rekindled.
So, nice.
Yeah.
Go support them on Patreon. I love the fact that not only are they just like the super fans beyond super fans, but they're doing all of these things with a video camera in one hand and taking all of the fans along with them. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you've been following recently, but I mean, they've uncovered some more neat stuff in the trailer. I mean, they found some of the studio marks, things like that.
Oh, interesting.
Just it's stuff that you wouldn't think would be interesting and fun, but it totally is. You sit down and watch it, and all of a sudden, like a half hour has gone by, and it's like, I just spent a half hour watching a guy taking panels off the floor of a trailer. Mm-hmm. And it went by like nothing, because it's like, what are they going to find? What are they going to find? And you're like, this is the trailer that Kit was in, man. It's, you know what? Maybe it's an older thing. I don't know, but I love what they're doing. Thanks for commenting there. And let me get a couple other comments here just from last week's podcast, where we were talking about the Mazda MX-30. 2023 at Barth 500 Pininfarina Battista record, and we were also talking about just Thanksgiving and automotive things we were thankful for.
We did.
And I just want to say a couple comments here. Very, very touching. I appreciate it. I know, Bruce, you appreciate it. Totally. The first commenter, I'm totally gonna butcher your username here. Nadrid Raman. I hope I'm getting even close to that. The comment is, if you had only 2 subscribers, I can guarantee you that I'd be one of them. Keep up the great show. Thanks so much. That means the world. If we only had 1 subscriber, if we had 0 subscribers, it would just be me and Bruce sitting here recording this thinking, okay, who are we going to send it to? But we love having you listen. Ted Adam Green coming back in, and I'd be the other one. thanks so much for listening. Thanks everybody out there for listening. We love doing this.
And real quick, an email that we got from frequent commenter Rui Rika.
Yeah.
He says, "Hi, listening to the pod late as usual. I never had a sound effects CD in my car, but I tried an app that used an accelerometer on my phone to make my Dacia Logan MCV, that's the wagon," he says, "sound like a V8 Ferrari or a NASCAR. It was fun, but annoying after a while. I'd rather listen to music or a podcast." He does say, though, and I did not know about this, Renault, in their R-Link infotainment system, at least in the Clio RS, not sure if it was available on other models, there was a menu where you could customize the engine sound that you heard in the cabin. Your choices included a Renault Sport Clio Cup, a Nissan GTR, a Sport Clio 2 V6, a Renault, I've never heard of this model,
From the 1930s?
Yeah, he said it's from the 20s or 30s, a
Ryan
spaceship, a Renault 8 Gordini race car from the 60s, an Alpine Renault 110S, and a bike. He says he's not sure what kind. So the ideas that you're talking about have been done before, and it could be done again. As always, keep rambling. That's a really cool idea, and more automakers should do that. Because if you're going to pump in fake sound,
give us some choices. Let us have some fun with it, man.
Right.
Yeah,
I hope the bike was like a bicycle and it sounded like there was a baseball card at the spokes. Just went
that would be hilarious. I mean, how many times are you hearing nowadays about automakers charging subscriptions? That's a subscription that I pay for.
Sure. That's like downloading ringtones like back in the early 2000s. It's basically the same
download
idea.
Your ringtones. You pay like $2 or $3 for a ringtone or what? I can't remember what it was.
That's what I think that's what it was.
And here's a subscriber challenge or a listener challenge for everybody out there, all you ramblers. If you scour YouTube hard enough, you will find multiple videos of me in a Taurus show with a V8 and a V10 Sound Racer adapter. If you scour YouTube hard enough and can find and shoot a link to us, hey, I found your videos, I'll do something on the podcast. I'll do something fun. I'll do something weird on the podcast. They're out there. This was back probably about 10 years ago. Well, no more than that, maybe 10 or 15. These were little things that plugged into the cigarette lighter that you could then program into your stereo, and you'd pick it up on the stereo system. And it took the electrical signal from the car and determined approximately what the RPMs were, and it would play an engine sound through your stereo. And I mean, they were fun for like a half a day.
Sounds like Rui. That about as fun as the app. Yeah. Eventually got annoying.
Fun for about a half a day. They didn't really like it if you revved over 5,000 RPMs. So but hey, fun stuff. Find it over on YouTube. I'm not gonna give you any other hints other than it's me in a Taurus show.
Okay. I have a feeling. Are there a lot of videos with you in a Taurus show on YouTube?
No.
Okay. I stand corrected then.
No, there is another one of me racing a Camaro and whipping his what to the 8th mile, but then I missed a 2-3 shift and then he snuck by me at the end. Okay. Such is life.
How's the new show doing?
It's the same as it was in June, under a cover, only now it has a bunch of boxes stacked on top of it. So it's like the perfect project car now.
Exactly.
Because that's how they end up with, at least mine has a cover on it. Usually there's no cover and just boxes stacked on. So it has the cover with boxes stacked on it. But hopefully in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be doing a little bit on it. At least get some tires switched around. I got to get the wheels pulled off and sent down to the guy I bought it from, because the wheels that are on it are special white wheels that he's using on one of his show projects. Some of the cars over the years came with white wheels from the factory, so that's a pretty rare thing. I don't want white wheels on a blue car. So I'll be working on it here in a couple of weeks.
Okay, cool. Well, let's transition back to news. Our last two
Yes.
topics are actually connected in a pretty distinct way, and you'll understand more as we get into them. But just today, as we're recording this, November 30th, Honda announced what's happening where they currently make but are about to stop making the Honda NSX. And that is at the Performance Manufacturing Center in Ohio. They are going to build, and you have to, this is interesting, it is a plug-in hybrid fuel cell version of the CRV, and that will begin production there in 2024.
Well, do we know it's CRV or is it based on CRV? Because there wasn't a lot of information here. It was just sort of just a surprise announcement really today that Honda just dropped.
You're right. For Claire, I should say they said it is based on the CRV. We do
based
not know
on
that
the
it is
CRV,
literally
right.
a CRV.
Right.
So you're right. Good clarification there.
But of course, Honda, I mean, they've done fuel cells before. And I think the only way forward with electrification is going to be a combination of regular battery electric and fuel cell. So I think I think Honda's on the right track here. If more automakers get involved, I think we're going to see a little bit more stepping up in the hydrogen realm, because I mean it's a solution that can be put into place and it's familiar to people, just stopping to fuel up your vehicle, right? I mean, we've gone down this road before, and I know, Bruce, you're shaking your head. So tell me why it's not going to work, and don't say the Hindenburg, because
no, I'm not.
That's old news.
No. It takes a massive amount of energy to create hydrogen that you can put into a vehicle, when it seems like battery technology is advancing at a far faster rate, where you think about what vehicle were we talking about? Was it the Lucid that could go like 400 miles on a charge? No, there was a vehicle. I can't.
The Tesla Semi was, according to Elon Musk.
No.
You're not thinking about that. Fully loaded up 500 miles.
Right. Well, there was that, but no, this was a sedan or something like that was doing 400 miles on a charge.
Well, I mean, Lucid is getting, I think, almost 500 or a little bit more on their first editions, the ones that the Lucid Air, the ones that went out first. But I mean, they're getting 450 on them now. Those are the really expensive models, though.
Right. But that technology is going to trickle down, and it's going to get cheaper as people make more of it. And you can make the same argument about fuel cells, but it's just the fact that you have to build. We have electrical lines crossing this entire nation, where you can,
and one big gust of wind knocks them down.
Yeah, or you can put up windmills and generate electricity from. Not that, but
yeah,
like
I'm on board with electric power. I see the future being I mean, like right now you have gasoline and diesel engines, right?
Sure.
You can't run diesel in a gasoline engine and vice versa. They require different engineering, different components. There are different refining processes. I see something similar with hydrogen and electricity. In some locations, I just don't think electricity is going to be feasible for a very, very long time. And I'm talking about, I mean, like the places I was at out in South Dakota, North Dakota, Wyoming, Montana, Idaho, places where you're standing and you can't see a house or a car or a road anywhere in sight. I mean, having charging stations out that far, trying to run all that, but nearby in town somewhere, there's going to be a gas station. If there's a place where we can fill up your hydrogen, I mean, that's what I see. But at the same time, it depends on how quickly battery and charging tech progresses. If we get to a point in the next 5 years or so where cars have 1,000-mile range and can recharge in 15 minutes.
I mean, gas cars don't have 1,000-mile range, so I don't think that's a realistic.
No, but I mean, why not? We're seeing 500 in cars right now, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And if you have a truck, a pickup truck, a heavy duty pickup truck with 1,000-mile range unloaded, that might drop to 500 or so loaded. I gotta think that's probably going to be comfortable enough for a lot of the people that might have to drive, 3 or 4 hours, round trip, pulling a trailer into town, back out to their ranch, something that to that effect. Um, so it depends on how quickly the battery tech progresses.
Right.
But the news here, obviously, Honda is taking where they're building the NSX, and they're going to do this new plug-in fuel cell hybrid.
And as we're talking about this, it does make me think, is this vehicle a solution to that? Because the hydrogen infrastructure is incredibly small.
Right.
And we don't know enough about this vehicle. I'm speculating a little bit here. But if you can plug this in, I wonder how much it's going to be able to recharge. And I wonder if it's going to be able to essentially operate as both. That it can function as an electric vehicle that you plug in. But if you live in a place and you can get to a place that can recharge hydrogen, you can use it that way as well. Mm-hmm. Again, we don't know that yet, but it makes me wonder whether Honda kind of understands the infrastructure issues, and maybe that combining plug-in power and fuel cell power might be a solution to that.
I think it could be a solution. And I think it's also worth pointing out, or at least mentioning, the recharging infrastructure was very, very thin until automakers in some ways started to force the issue.
That's true.
If nobody's building hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, why invest in hydrogen infrastructure? If nobody's building electric vehicles, why invest in all of these charging networks? And it's only through the influx of these vehicles where it's been deemed, okay, well, this can work if we have better infrastructure. So if we see more automakers coming up and saying, okay, we're going to go ahead and develop these fuel cell vehicles, now let's push the issue forward. And it might require investments from automakers to get that going. But once it's going, and once there is a demand, people will step in and make it happen. So I don't know if that's part of Honda's plan. The announcement they released this morning was just very, very simple. Pretty much everything that we said. Hey, we're going to take the spot where the NSX was being built, and now we're going to build this new fuel cell hydrogen plug-in hybrid vehicle based on the CRV. And that's, I think, going to be produced in 2024.
Correct.
Yes. So still a little ways to go. They're going to have more information as we get closer to 2024.
Yep.
In the meantime, what's going to be gone for 2023?
You won't be able to buy in 2024 or 2023 for that matter.
So every year, I mean, we have a variety of what we call evergreen articles that we try to update at least a couple times a year, especially as we get towards the end of the year, the middle of the year. We're getting towards the end of the year. It's already December as you're listening to this, December 2022. And this past week, our colleague, senior editor Jeff Perez, took some time out of his very busy schedule and updated our list of discontinued cars for next year. These are cars, as we get to the end of 2022, they're not going to be going forward. So we've got 15, I think, on the list. Bruce, is that correct? I've looked at the list.
I did not count them. So,
but I'll be honest,
right?
I haven't. Well, I mean, the headline says 15 discontinued cars. So
damn you.
Presumably Jeff knows how to count. Although I think it's okay. I got to count it now because it would be hilarious if it's not 1, 2,
anyway,
3,
here's
4.
What I thought. Let's go through these, one by one, tell people what the vehicle is, because obviously not everyone is able to watch on YouTube, and talk about each one.
Yes.
That was kind of what I was thinking.
And there are 15 I discounted. So well done, Jeff. You've conquered basic math.
I feel dumb. I feel really dumb.
You're not dumb. You just didn't catch the headline.
Right. I read the story. I promise you that.
Because you're just jumping right into the meat. You don't take no prisoners. You're a tiger.
Anyway, so
tigers don't need numbers.
So these are in alphabetical order as well. So we're not playing favorites, but this is just how it goes. So Acura ILX, and this one makes sense because the new Integra is here. Yep. And why would Acura sell both of those vehicles at the same time? Because they're competing for exactly the same customers.
Right. I don't think the ILX ever really garnered much attention.
Not really.
I mean, maybe it's due to the design. I didn't think the ILX was a bad car.
No, I didn't ever thought it was unattractive,
But I mean, when you start talking about ILX, TLX, MDX, RDX, again, we've had this conversation before on this program, where just designations like that, where everything sounds the same, it just doesn't really spark a lot of interest. Again, it's companies trying to mimic Mercedes and BMW that have been doing that, using that formula for decades and have it established.
right.
It's not as easy to establish when you have everything sounding just the same.
And
Acura,
with no
Integra,
really clear
direction.
Like, hearing MDX or RDX or ILX or TSX, or TLX, you don't immediately know where it sits in the lineup. Where BMW is the first one that comes to my mind, or Audi as well. 3 Series, 5 Series, 7 Series.
Okay,
as the number gets bigger, the car gets bigger.
The car gets bigger, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
or, Audi A4, A6, A8. The number gets bigger, the car gets bigger.
Yep. C class, E class, S class.
Yep. The further in the alphabet.
Further in the alphabet. Yep. So I mean, there's some symmetry there. But I've always been a fan of names. You say Acura, Integra, you know exactly what that is.
Yeah, totally. So next up, and speaking of Acura, and speaking of the NSX goes away. The Type S was a 1-year model. They made 350 of them, and that's it.
That'll be it. I mean, the cars had a great run. We've said it before on this program. We kind of feel like maybe it got a little bit of a short stick because Acura had their big plans to debut the vehicle, and then Ford came out of nowhere at the Detroit Auto Show and said, "Hey, check out our new Ford GT," and people were like, "Acura, huh?"
Exactly.
So it kind of had that from the beginning, but a phenomenal supercar. What will the future bring? We'll have to wait and see if anything comes back to replace it. But for now, we shall miss you, NSX.
Buick Encore.
I don't think we're going to miss the Buick Encore. Do you?
No. It sold very well for a while. It was when they first came out, you saw these things everywhere. Not so much now.
Well, and we're going to get the Buick Envision, I think, right? Or the Invista.
I believe, yes. Invista. Envision already exists.
Yeah. Okay, Invista. Again, Buick and come on, do a little bit better. There's too many Buick Encore, Enclave, Invista, Engage. And
I don't think that's one.
There is no Engage. I'm just making it up now. But yeah, we're getting a new Buick. The Encore is going away. And on
the Chevy
that
Trax, though, which is its less expensive sibling, sticks around for 2024. So if you were dead set on an Encore, you can still buy a Trax.
You can still get the Trax. And I mean, I think the people that were looking at that segment were probably more interested in the Trax anyways than the Buick. Chevrolet Spark is also going away. It was the cheapest car.
Anyone's going to miss this car.
Well, I mean, hey, the cheapest car in America. What did it start at? 15. What's it say? 14,595. It says it right there in the article. I should have seen that. So yeah, you're not the only one missing it, Bruce. It's all right. Chevrolet Spark. Yeah, I don't think people are really going to miss that one too much. Of course, more interest now is on smaller SUVs, small crossovers. So
yeah,
another little hatchback bites the dust.
And speaking of it, just a minute ago, it's hilarious that these cars basically debuted at the same time and they're dying at the same time.
Oh, I never thought about that. What symmetry. Yeah. What beautiful symmetry. The NSX and the Ford GT debuted at the same time, depart at the same time. And of course, I mean, the Ford GT was always going to be a limited run car. Actually, it's gone a little bit longer than originally planned. But yeah, Ford GT headed on out. Will there be another Ford supercar to replace it further down the road? We'll just have to wait and see.
I have a question about this one for you, Smith.
Yep.
I know you worked at Ford when the previous Gen GT came out.
Yes.
Am I mistaken? That's correct, right?
I came in just at the tail end. So
okay.
I think I started just about the same time. I was there in 2006. and the 4GT was headed out for '06. But I did
Okay.
do a fair amount of work. I actually wrote a little bit of 4GT history. There's a book floating around that I'm a guest author in. If all of the Ramblers want another challenge, find the book about a 4GT in which I'm a guest author.
So with that resume in mind, do you think the current this one, the new one, will get the collectability of that 04, 06 car? Because
Yes.
those things have just, not only have they held value, they skyrocketed in value.
Yes. Well, this one is a very different car. The 05, 06 GT, that was really an homage to the Mark II. It pulled on all of those heartstrings while still being a modern car, a modern usable car, really. This 4GT, what you would call the second gen here, just a completely different animal. This is like, okay, this, it pays homage in that we'll put some stripes on it, but that's pretty much it. It's just a modern, incredible performance machine through and through. I think it appeals to a different audience, but it's still just amazing enough to get passionate Ford enthusiasts excited about it. I think this will absolutely be just as strong, if not stronger, than the first gen, the 05, 06. That's my take.
Moving on to a vehicle I don't know that will be so loved in the future, the Fiat 500X. I say that our former boss, John Neff, loved this car.
You know, I had the chance to drive one of these. It's been a few years. But I rather liked it too. It was just, it felt sprightly for what it was. That's probably the best way I can describe it. It's just like, hey, I'm kind of small, but I don't care. I just want to go out and have some fun, you know. And it was moderately comfortable. I mean, not terrifically practical for just a small little SUV crossover. Didn't have a lot of room in the back, but I mean, certainly enough room for a small family. But it just wallowed in anonymity, right? I think it just, people just never really knew it was there in the first place. So it's like, how can you forget about it then?
Right. Yeah. So, and it's worth noting that this means that there's only a single Fiat product available in the United States, and that's the 500e. I hope we get that Abarth version we talked about last week. We'll see. It would be something at least, but yeah, the Fiat brand is just a kind of a rough spot right now in the US. We'll see if we get out of it.
We'll see. We're pulling for you. Honda Insight is going away, and I mean, it was always sort of an odd vehicle. It's interesting though, because I mean, when I see Honda Insight, I'm also thinking about Toyota Crown, which I think is in a similar situation, and it's just coming into the market, you know, just kind of look and design wise, right?
I kind of see what you're going from there. Like, it's interesting. You think about the original Insight, and that was like such a, whether, a lot of people don't find them attractive, but it was such like a futuristic vehicle. It was kind of like Honda trying to like do absolutely whatever they could for fuel economy. And this, it just looks like, I mean, honestly, it looks like a lot like a Civic hatchback with, some slightly different sculpting. And so it just blends in.
Little bit bigger, a little bit taller. But yeah, it could be just a slightly, it could be a Civic hatch that got stung by wasps.
Yeah, it's just, there's nothing.
Just kind of has that odd kind of bloated look.
Yeah, it's just not distinguishable. So,
and I mean, selling what, only 20,000 per year. I mean, not a great seller. So not really surprised to see it go.
Yep. Hyundai Veloster N. It's always sad to see a hot hatch go. I kind of like the Veloster. I know it's a polarizing vehicle, but I always kind of like the look of the Veloster, and the N model was obviously the top of the heap. So yeah.
I mean, I liked it as well. I don't know if it would have been my first choice going for something in that segment.
I agree.
and maybe that's why it's going away. But I guess I just don't have much of an opinion on that one.
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, the hatchback segment is shrinking. I'm a hatchback fan, so always sad to see it go away. Will it be missed? Well, I don't know if it will, to be honest.
I see. This is a vehicle I could see in 5 to 8 years' time being a really hot pickup on the used market.
Could be cheap too.
That exact cheap, fun. I could see this being a good used pick depending on how things go.
Right.
Next up, a vehicle that Jeff puts it in the story. They sold, I should say what it is first, the Infiniti Q60.
Yes, Infiniti
in 2020, they sold 2,792 of these. It's just a car
2,792, yeah.
Yeah, a car that has never really found an audience, which is interesting because like the G35 and then the G37, which were its predecessors, those did kind of find an audience, and for whatever reason, this one didn't.
Well, I'm trying to remember its performance stats offhand, and maybe that's part of the problem because I don't think it was particularly impressive when you considered its competition. But I can't remember exactly what they were.
Okay. Yeah. But you could get this in like the red trim with the twin turbo V6 that's in the Z now, right? Am I mistaken?
Nah, I think so.
It's we don't seem very smart right now. But
it's the end of the year. We've processed a lot of cars this year, folks.
Right. And
there have been a lot of debuts. No, I know the Z pulled its engine from Infiniti. I just can't remember if it's the Q60 or not.
Right.
But at the end of the day, when you look at 2,792 units in a year,
and 2020 was a bad year, but it wasn't that bad of a year.
Yeah. So Infiniti moving on to bigger and better things here. Lexus RXL.
Right. So we have a new Lexus RX coming next year, new generation. And with that new generation, they're dropping the L model. L being long, although it wasn't actually a long wheelbase. It was just they kind of crammed in a third row into there.
Right. And want to clarify, we're talking about just the longer version. The RX.
Only the L is going away. The RX is a whole new generation.
Right.
Coming.
All new vehicle.
Right.
See, we do know stuff.
No, yeah. But so it's hard to like miss this because a new RX is coming. So, they pared down the number of variants available. You can't get a 3-row RX anymore.
And I mean, we're seeing that honestly from a lot of automakers now, just kind of paring things down, trying to tighten up the belt a little bit because they're discovering it's expensive to try to invest and develop the newer technologies that we're seeing for hybrids, plug-in hybrids, EVs. So I think we're going to see a lot more vehicles exit the scene here in the coming years.
Another one that's going away, the Mercedes-AMG CLS 53. And we should note that the base CLS still exists in the US. It's just this AMG model that's going away. The CLS has been in a weird place for me since the original. The one, so our boss Seth owns a first-gen CLS, and that is a gorgeous-looking car. And it eventually just kind of became like a very slightly swoopier E-Class.
Yeah, it was... I like Seth's first gen. I think it's a really elegant looking car. The generation we have now, it's the proportions just don't do it for me. The proportions just seem really awkward. And I don't have the sales figures in front of me, but think about how many Mercedes models and then submodels and trims. I think we're going to see a lot more consolidation from Mercedes going forward.
Speaking of which, the Mercedes-Benz A-Class is going away.
Yes.
So this is actually some stuff we've covered. Mercedes plans to trim down their compact car range. The GLA sticking around because that one sells really well, but the A-Class is going away just because that the market, I think, for these compact premium cars is, I think I don't know enough about the industry to say that it's soft, but if you look here and you see the A class is going away, you know,
No, I'm with you. And plus there's the CLA,
right.
which it's really, really close. So, and again, Mercedes has just so many different trim levels. It feels like right now.
Yeah.
I think we'll see more consolidation in the years to come.
Yep. This is one we talked about. We did a segment on the Subaru
Mhm.
WRX STI. And again, this is just the STI model. We know a new generation of the WRX just debuted.
Mhm.
So no more STI. We've talked about this. It's a bummer. Like, I would love to see a new STI, but
Mhm.
Subaru is investing in electrification. And they just kind of don't see a reason to do a new STI.
Yep. It's sad for the rally fans out there.
Mhm.
We still have the WRX though that we can play with.
Yep.
Whether or not the STI returns later on down the road remains to be seen. I suspect something will arrive eventually.
I agree.
But
Something
I
with an
think it's going to be
STI badge will happen eventually.
it's going to be very different from the
Yeah,
vehicles that we have now.
correct.
By that I mean probably heavily electrified, if not entirely electric.
Mhm. Definitely.
And the Toyota Avalon, large sedan. This one kind of hurts me a little bit because I've always been a bigger sedan fan. But I mean, everybody knows sedans just aren't where it's at anymore. I think the Camry and the Accord are really the only ones that are selling in any appreciable numbers at this point. The Avalon headed out here, and it's in a lot of ways going to be replaced by the new Toyota Crown,
Right.
which we were just talking about, somewhat resembling the outgoing Honda Insight. So
I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't think
it's just
in the general proportions it does a little bit, but the Crown's weird in its own way. The
yeah,
Crown is like, it's not quite a crossover, it's not quite a wagon, and it's not quite a sedan. It's
which kind
kind
of
of all three.
describes the Honda Insight, maybe.
A little bit, maybe.
I mean, it sits up. It sits up higher than a regular sedan.
Mhm.
It's got the the slope back. So, hey, we'll see how it shakes out. We'll
Right.
see how it
Yeah.
shakes out. And the
Um,
Volkswagen Passat is going away. Again, another big sedan. It's just people are buying the SUVs, so
yeah.
sayonara Passat, and it's been here for a while. Well, the Avalon's been here for a while too.
Yep.
And the Passat's been here for a long while as well.
Since the
So
early because it was the Dasher originally when they sold it in the US, and then it eventually became the Passat.
yeah.
First model year, I want to say is like 89 or 90, something like that for the Passat name. So yeah, it's long live name in the United States. It's
Yep.
finally going away.
Yep.
And real
And
quick, I'm going to scroll down here. We also know a few vehicles that are already going to be discontinued for 2024. So if you want one of these, get them soon. So the Audi R8 is going away. Smith, you and I've talked about this: the Dodge Challenger and Charger, and just the Hellcats in
the
general.
Hellcat models. Yep. One thing missing on this list that I noticed that we'll have to get updated. Chrysler 300. Well, actually, a couple things. The 300C.
Yep.
Will be headed out. 2023 is the last year for it. And then also the Nissan Maxima.
Oh, I completely forgot about the Maxima.
Another staple.
Two more sedans.
Another staple in the world of American sedans. I mean, not built in America, but sold in America.
Right.
Dating back to, well, I mean, the Datsun Maxima was, I mean, early 80s, I think.
It's
like
so
80 or 81.
I knew a girl in high school who had an 83 Datsun Maxima, so it's at least that old.
Yeah, another long-standing sedan. So, yep. Sayonara. Some of you will be missed. Some of you we've probably already forgotten about. But such is life in the way of motoring. Now, we have a little bit of time.
Okay. What are you thinking?
I am thinking that I should probably tell everybody that my search for a vehicle is over. I don't have photos yet because I haven't really had much of a chance to get some good photos. But, ladies and gentlemen, ramblers, I managed to buy the only 18-year-old Subaru in the Midwest with no rust. It's a 2004 Subaru Forester XS, not the XT. It's nothing fancy. It's nothing spectacular. It is nicely equipped. It's odd. It has leather heated seats, but they're manually controlled.
Oh, okay.
No power seats, but they're leather and heated. It's in great shape overall, 158,000 miles. But what about the head gaskets, you say? The owner told me, there's no receipts, unfortunately, but the owner told me, formerly owned by a Subaru mechanic, replaced valve cover gaskets, head gaskets, 20,000 miles ago, around 140,000. And as I've said before, when you're buying cheaper cars, it's important to shop the buyer as much as the seller, or shop the seller as much as the car. I believed everything this guy was saying. And I could also look at the engine and clearly see the blue Felpro valve cover gaskets that were not really that dirty at all. Did not look like an original 18-year-old setup. So the car runs and drives really good. It's an automatic. It'll serve my purposes very well. It's a metallic black, and honestly, I can't wait to put my buffing wheel on it because it's not in bad shape now, but it's just, I mean, it's just been a daily driver Subaru for somebody, right? So go over it with the wheel. It'll have a really deep shine to it. I'm going to get some snow tires put on it this week. Cool. And then those tires are the same size that will go on the Taurus show sitting in the shop. So I can do a nice little tire swap there, get the white wheels off. See, I was kind of leading up to this the whole way.
Yeah, very nice.
I had this cooking in my mind and I wasn't paying attention to anything else we were talking about. So yes, the search is over. I bought it, I think, at a fair price. Cool. It was disgusting to see some of the vehicles people were trying to sell at some of the price points they were at. It was just ridiculous. I'd looked at a Ford Escape prior to this. That was actually, they were asking a lot more. It was a few years newer. But I mean, there were broken suspension components on this thing when I crawled up underneath. And it had a terrific exhaust leak from the rear manifold. It's like, I think the engine has to be pulled to replace that. And the seller was just like, well, I mean, it's a 2010. It's like, yeah, you see that 95 Mustang I just pulled up over there?
Right.
It's not the age, it's how you take care of it. So yeah. But yeah, the search is over. So Bruce, I also have a black Subaru sitting in the garage.
Yes,
a little bit older than yours. But it's my third Subaru. The first two were really bad experiences because they were terrifically rusty. And this thing is like unnervingly rust free underneath. Like, okay, was it wrecked and it like sat for 10 years somewhere where there's no salt? But no, great car. I'm excited to show some pictures to all the ramblers.
Cool. Yeah, we can't wait to see him next week.
Next week? I have to take him next week?
Well, you can take them whenever you want.
I have to get it detailed first. I have to get my wheels on it. I have to get the lights done. I've got to put the stereo. I'm making way too many plans for what's going to be.
We'll see it like mid-February then. Mid-February, we'll get.
Let's push that to next summer.
Okay.
Because by then I'll have it lowered. I'll have the STI hood on it. I'll have the I need to stop right now. This is just going to be like, if I can just flip it in the spring, get my money back, and maybe make a little bit, I'll be happy.
Okay, sounds good. So real quick, just want to preview next week. We will have several Motor One editors, and we will be doing the roundup for the Motor One Star Awards.
Yes.
Next week, we will be publishing the winners in all the categories. So when this show goes up next Friday, we'll have talking about all of those, getting those guys' experience and stuff like that. So.
And you'll definitely want to tune into motor1.com all week long because we are going to be sharing articles. Articles will be posting up, I think, every day.
I believe
I think that's
or two a day.
One or two winners announced each day.
Yeah.
And it was a very comprehensive test this year. Totally. Lots of amazing vehicles. they put hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles on these vehicles through
Mhm.
the course of a very long week, and we can't wait to see how it all shakes out. We know you can't either. So motor1.com, make sure you're catching all of that. And hey, email us podcast@motor1.com when you read them and say, why did they pick that one?
Exactly. And then, so I am not going to reveal, we have guests set up that for the episode in 2 weeks.
Yes.
I'm not going to reveal them only because sometimes things fall through and I don't want to get anyone's hopes up. But for a hint of what to expect, I will just say this: they are quiet and they are great. And if you've been keeping an eye on automotive books recently, that will mean something to you. So,
yes.
I'm
very excited for that episode. You
absolutely.
should be too, because we're going to see some amazing vehicles. We're going to hear some amazing stories.
Yeah.
Tune in.
Yep. But yeah, that's our show for tonight. Good afternoon, good evening, or good night. We always appreciate our listeners. Thanks so much for all the comments this week.
Mhm.
You know, it's fine. Yeah, I don't care if you don't comment to the most recent episode.
Yeah.
Comment to older ones, and we'll read those too, like we did this week.
Got to go back to the first episode,
exactly,
which was 100 ago. This is episode 100, 100. We've made it that far. Go back to the very beginning and see how dumb we were back then.
Yeah, or don't. You don't have to. Maybe just don't. Maybe just don't. But yeah, we appreciate it. We love reading your comments. I love seeing them even on older episodes. I like to see people kind of going back into the archives, even if it is, 3-4 weeks old, stuff like that. So appreciate all of that. But that's going to be our show for tonight. So bye everybody.
Bye. See ya.